Let's be real for a second. Have you ever found yourself saying yes to something you really, really didn't want to do just because someone made you feel incredibly guilty for even trying to say no? Or maybe you've walked away from a conversation feeling totally dizzy, questioning your own memory, or somehow feeling like you're the selfish one for just wanting a little peace and quiet? If any of that sounds familiar, trust me, you are absolutely not alone. And honestly, your instincts are probably spot on. That feeling is exactly what we're unpacking in this explainer. We're diving into the clinical source material to expose the hidden mechanics of emotional abuse. But more importantly, we are going to equip you with some real actionable defenses. We're calling this the playbook versus the shield, surviving dark psychology. Because make no mistake, manipulation is a highly calculated game. But once you can actually see their playbook, you can finally build your shield. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the dark psychology playbook. 2, love bombing and gaslighting. 3, the anatomy of emotional blackmail. 4, setting firm relationship boundaries. And 5, the gray rock method. All right, section 1, the dark psychology playbook. To really understand how to protect yourself, we first have to face the clinical reality of what we're actually dealing with here. We're not just talking about someone having a bad day or being a little difficult. The clinical definition of dark psychology is literally the study and application of psychological principles to manipulate, influence, or control people in harmful ways. People with traits like narcissism actually use their understanding of human behavior to exploit our vulnerabilities. So the biggest takeaway right out of the gate is this. Your feelings of being controlled or isolated, they are very real. It's the direct result of applied psychological tactics. These covert plays show up in our daily interactions all the time, and they're super calculated. Manipulators use things like paltering, which is basically telling a partial truth just to create a completely false impression, or triangulation, literally dragging a third person into a conflict just to make you feel jealous and insecure. Then there's negging, those lovely backhanded compliments that subtly chip away at your confidence so you end up seeking their approval. It's a whole toolkit, and it's designed specifically to keep you off balance. Moving on to section 2, love bombing and gaslighting. So let's look at the alluring traps they use to reel you in. You know, a toxic dynamic almost never starts with cruelty. It starts with an illusion. Genuine affection respects your boundaries, right? It lets the relationship pace itself naturally. Love bombing is the exact opposite. It's an excessive, overwhelming flood of attention, gifts, and praise right at the beginning. They might call you their soulmate within a week, completely rushing things and demanding constant attention. It feels like a fairy tale, for sure, but it's actually a mechanism for coercive control. They want you emotionally invested before the abuse even begins. And once they've got you hooked, out comes the gaslighting. This is all about distorting your perception. It usually boils down to 4 common behaviors. Denial, which is just flat out insisting something never happened. Trivializing, basically telling you you're just being way too sensitive. Countering, where they accuse you of always twisting their words. And withholding, which is when they refuse to engage at all, just pretending they have no clue what you're talking about. The goal here is not to win a debate. The goal is to cause such chronic self-doubt that you just give up and rely entirely on their version of reality. I never said that. You're imagining things. Man, hearing that is a visceral, gut punch experience for anyone who has ever been gaslit. It's quite literally a weaponized phrase. Over time, hearing this kind of thing over and over chips away at your core identity. You start defaulting to apologizing just to keep the peace. And worse, you completely lose trust in your own mind. And if you do finally muster the courage to confront a narcissist about what they're doing, you're almost guaranteed to get hit with this, the DARVO tactic, D-A-R-V-O. Step 1, they deny the behavior entirely. Step 2, they attack you, usually going after your memory or your character. And step 3, they reverse victim and offender. Suddenly, magically, they are the one who has been so deeply hurt by your false accusations. It's just a systematic, incredibly frustrating refusal to take any responsibility. Which brings us to section 3, the anatomy of emotional blackmail. Now we're getting into the actual mechanics of coercive pressure and how your own empathy gets used against you. After all I've done for you, this is how you treat me? Talk about a massive guilt trip, right? Emotional blackmail relies heavily on the fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. By leveraging your sense of loyalty and your natural desire to just be a good person, the manipulator turns your own emotions into a leash to control you. When you look at this source material, this entrapment actually follows a very clear 6-stage chronological cycle. First, they make a demand. Second, you show resistance because, well, it crosses a line. Third, they crank up the pressure, bringing out the guilt, the anger, or the silent treatment. Fourth, completely exhausted, you yield in compliance. Fifth, since it worked, that leads right to repetition. And sixth, the really tragic final stage, loss of self. As you keep giving in to their demands, your own autonomy just kind of dissolves. So, why do they do it? The manipulator's ultimate goal is creating a profound sense of overwhelming indebtedness and dependency. They don't just want a quick favor. They want you to feel so emotionally drained and boxed in that you end up relying completely on them for everything. All right, Section 4, setting firm relationship boundaries. It's time to flip the script. This is where we transition from being a passive target to becoming a fully empowered defender. You absolutely can take back psychological control. And look, these aren't just polite little suggestions. These are your essential psychological shields. You have got to refuse to let them talk to you disrespectfully. Protect your personal info so they can't weaponize it later. Demand that your opinions are actually respected. And insist, I mean really insist, that they listen when you say no. And hey, if you feel suffocated, you have every right in the world to take some personal space. And honestly, this might be the most empowering role of all. You do not have to justify, defend, or explain why you need a specific boundary. Your boundaries are absolute. End of story. When you say no, that is a complete sentence. You aren't opening the floor for a negotiation, and you certainly don't owe an abusive person a detailed explanation for simply protecting your own peace. But, and this is a big but, you need to expect pushback. Narcissists are very used to getting their way. When you actually enforce a boundary, they are going to cycle through all their defensive plays. They'll act like the victim, they'll argue, blame you, minimize your feelings, or just flat out lose their temper. But remember, this escalation isn't a sign that your boundary is wrong. It's actually proof that your boundary is working and they are losing their control. So hold your ground. Finally, Section 5, the gray rock method. So what do you do when you absolutely have to interact with a toxic coworker or a co-parent or a family member you just can't escape? You use this. It's your ultimate tactical shield. The concept is exactly what it sounds like. You act as boring, as totally uninteresting, and as unresponsive as a plain gray rock on the ground. Narcissists feed on drama. They want your anger, your tears, your reactions. By giving them absolutely nothing to work with, you starve them of that emotional supply they're so desperately craving. In practice, here's how you execute it. When forced to talk to them, just use brief, one-word answers. Yes, no, Speak in a completely flat, monotone voice. Keep your face totally blank. Under no circumstances do you share personal details about your life, and keep your body language super neutral. Basically, you want to become so incredibly dull that they actually get bored, frustrated, and just lose interest in bothering you. Now, I want to be super clear about something because this is crucial. A healthy human connection requires expressing your feelings openly and being vulnerable, right? The gray rock method is the exact opposite of that. It's actively withholding your emotional reactions to protect yourself. So please remember, gray rocking is a temporary survival tactic for dealing with toxic people. It is absolutely not a tool you should be using in healthy, genuine relationships. And we need to pause here for a very serious, grounded warning. You must avoid the gray rock method entirely if you are facing physical abuse or even the threat of it. Frustrating a highly volatile abuser by suddenly ignoring them can actually cause them to escalate their behavior in a really dangerous way. If you are in that situation, professional safety planning and reaching out to domestic violence resources is the only safe path forward. Well, we have covered a lot of ground in this explainer today, from the really insidious tactics of gaslighting and emotional blackmail, all the way to the empowering defense of setting boundaries and using the gray rock method. The manipulators, they definitely have their playbook, but now you have your shield. So, I want to leave you with one final thought. Will you recognize the playbook the next time someone tries to rewrite your reality? Trust your gut, protect your peace, and never, ever apologize for putting your well-being first.